A leader of the Proud Boys, the right-wing militia group that's accused of organizing the January 6th Capitol attack, pleaded guilty today to 2 felony charges and has agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in one of the most significant cases to emerge from the insurrection. Charles Donahoe, the president of a local Proud Boys chapter, admitted to conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding and to assaulting and impeding police officers. Video evidence from January 6th shows Donahoe admitting on camera that he stole a riot shield from police. Another video shows the defendant, among several others, completely overwhelming a thin line of law enforcement officers who were trying to block their advance on the east side of the Capitol. Now, I should also note that the graphics on that video were not added by NBC News. Donahoe is the first person in the Proud Boys leadership to plead guilty. He has close ties to Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio, who has also been charged for his role in the insurrection. Donahoe's cooperation could provide vital information to prosecutors about the planning that led to the attack. With me now is our friend Paul Butler, Georgetown law professor and former federal prosecutor. And Paul, this is juicy because so the Proud Boys leader, he's got all these charges he's facing: conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstructing an official proceeding, obstruction of law enforcement, destruction of government property, assaulting, resisting, and impeding certain officers. But here's the juicy bit. Donahoe, oh no, those are charges, sorry, against Enrique Tarrio. That's what Tarrio is charged with. Donahoe, in his court documents, has admitted to the following. Donahoe understood from discussions that the group would pursue their goal of blocking the certification of the Electoral College vote through the use of force and violence in order to show Congress that we, the people, were in charge. Sounds damning to me. Your thoughts?
Joy, the plea agreement is chilling. In open court, Donahoe confesses to organizing an attack on Congress and assaulting law enforcement officers. He admits that the purpose of the rally was to stop the certification of the election, and that he understood that violence would help accomplish that goal. Joy, we had factions of the Proud Boys that were operating as a paramilitary unit, and Enrique Tarrio was the general, but Donahoe had 65 people on his team. This is yet another reminder of how close we came to carnage on January 6th, even more carnage in the cost of human life and carnage in terms of our democracy.
And here's the question of how you, as a prosecutor, would use him, because Enrique Tarrio is the head of the Proud Boys. He hasn't pleaded out yet. He's charged with all of these things, all of these conspiracies. The idea here is that they weren't just a bunch of losers who decided to arm up and go attack the Capitol, that they had a plan that involved understanding that what they were doing could stop Congress from certifying the election and keep Trump in power, right? If he starts to point up and say, I've pleaded out, but look at that guy, look at that guy, look at that guy, how high could this go?
It could go all the way to the top. And the question is, who is at the top? So this guy is looking at 6 years, and that's why he flipped. Enrique Tarrio is now sitting in jail on those 6 felony charges, including obstruction. So, Joy, when prosecutors work a conspiracy case, they start at the bottom, they try to get folks to cooperate, and then hand over the real bad guys. So if we think of Thompson as kind of a lieutenant, let's say, and Tarrio is the general, somebody else is involved. And again, the question is whether the Department of Justice will have the resolve to go all the way to the top.
So if we're talking about the King's Court, let's now talk about the royal fool. CNN is reporting, and this is CNN reporting, and I will ascribe it to them. NBC News has not confirmed it, that Don Jr. texted Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff to Donald Trump, ideas for overturning the 2020 election. Now, here's the key. He didn't do that on January 4th, 5th, or even January 6th. He did it days after the election. Just after the election. It's very simple. Trump Jr. texted to Meadows on November 5th, adding later in the same missive, we have multiple paths. We control them all. Don Jr.'s strategy apparently was nearly identical to what played out, filing lawsuits and advocating recounts to prevent certain swing states from certifying their results, as well as having a handful of Republican state houses put forward slates of fake Trump electors. Now we're starting to see planning, and they're not saying he wrote these emails, because again, royal fool, but he was sending them out, sending them to Mark Meadows. Your thoughts?
emails that seem to concede that his father lost the election. And Joy, this is a huge development because it goes to criminal intent. Donald Trump Sr.'s defense in the impeachment trial, the second impeachment trial, was that he sincerely believed he had won and he was just trying to stop the steal. This text that Junior sent out suggests that they all thought that the American voters were basically irrelevant on the issue of whether Trump had a second term. The text said, we control them. And the key, Joy, now is for investigators to find out who we includes. Is it Daddy Trump? Is it Mark Meadows? Is it Jenny Thomas? Is it Steve Bannon? But many of those folks, whoever sent this text, whoever approved this text, seemed determined and fully prepared to keep Trump in office by any means necessary.
Long before even the December post by Trump saying it'll be wild, join me on January 6th. They seem to be planning right after the election, before the votes were even counted and certified. Let's go to one more headline for you, Paul. This one shocked me today. The FBI lost a big deal case. This was the plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, make a citizen's arrest of her, and maybe hurt her because they didn't like COVID restrictions. All three seem to be walking here. 2 suspects found not guilty, deadlock on the other 2, all 4, I should say. This is a wowzer for me. What do you make of it, and what message does that send to far right wingers who want to do similar things?
The message is, if they get the right jury, they can get away with it. Joy, the evidence in this case was overwhelming, but as a prosecutor, you never know what a jury is going to do. And these defense attorneys were able to persuade that this violent act, this act of, again, trying to subvert democracy in a different context, wasn't a crime. And when folks look at some of the plea agreements in the January 6 cases and ask, well, why is the government settling for that? In part, it's because a conviction is a sure thing in a plea bargain. And again, when you don't know what a jury is going to do, sometimes as a prosecutor, you have to be willing to accept a sentence that you think doesn't really reflect the depravity of the crime or the seriousness of the crime, just to get a sure conviction. Yeah. They didn't get that in this case in Michigan. And as a result, we are less safe. These people are kooky, and verdicts of acquittal embolden kooks.
Indeed. Smells like jury nullification to me. It's like 1950s old, trials of, all white juries convicting acquitting folks of when you knew they did it. Wow. Paul Butler, thank you very much.